Hello, everyone. My name is Carla Berline, and tonight we have with us the founders from Rock from the Heart. Please welcome Amy and Pete Johnson. Thank you both for being with us tonight.
Hi, Carla. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You are welcome. If you wouldn't mind starting by sharing, we'll get into what Rock from the Heart is, but your why. You have quite a story of your history and background and what inspired you to start and found Rock from the Heart.
Well, yeah, it's a real long story.
We've
Where
got time.
does it begin? I guess it began in my at my doctor's office visit in 2015, just in for my annual physical, and my doctor heard a heart murmur while he was listening to my heart, and he said, "Pete, have you ever been told you have a heart murmur before?" I said, "All my life I've heard that I have a heart murmur." He said, "And no one's ever checked it?" I said, No, they say it's probably just fine." And so he said, "Well, let's check that out." So that led to having an echocardiogram, which I don't know, listeners, if you don't know what that is, it's like an ultrasound like they do to ladies when they're pregnant to look at the baby. They do that to my heart. And oh yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. And it's like, I do, well, I feel great, but I don't anymore. Can we send a psychiatrist in before a cardiologist, please? That was kind of my reaction.
I can only imagine. And again, just a routine physical where it was found, correct?
That is correct.
And then what happened after that? What did he
Amy
share?
knows the part the best.
Yeah. Well, so Pete was a bus driver. So after they were, diagnosed it, I remember the day he got the call. He called me. I was actually driving from somewhere, and he called me and he said, "There's something wrong with my heart." That was after they'd heard the murmur and scheduled him for an echo. So the echo happened, and shortly thereafter we got the call. And I remember him saying the words, "You've got a 5 centimeter aortic aneurysm and aortic stenosis that will require surgery. Someone will call you in 2 weeks to set something up, click." And it's like, so of course I'm Googling those terms, and everything, all the feeling leaves your body when you read what that is and how many, what the mortality is for that. And as we talk, Pete's like, "I can't sit here and wait 2 weeks." He called his doctor. He called his doctor Prasanna and said, "I need to talk to you today." So he got us in within a couple hours. We stopped in at the Ridgeview Clinic, and Dr. Prasanna came in the room. And before he even sat down, I mean, I replayed this in my mind all the time. He's like, "Pete, this is a good thing. We found it, and it's all fixable." And then he sat down and drew the pictures. That was a game changer, that he just, kind of talked us off the ledge.
Yes.
To just say this is, and drew pictures and explained it. And then he sat down with Pete as they made the phone call and got the cardiology appointment to go and talk further. So that was that.
Well, and I remember a lot of people know, a lot of my viewers that follow me, and there's a lot of people in the medical device industry that follow me just from my dad. A lot of my viewers, because we've been on for, we're going to start our 23rd year on air in January. My parents used to always be on the show at least once a year, but I would post about them. So everybody knew I was a caregiver, and everybody knows my personal story of what we went through with my dad, of finding it in a similar, and the impact when you do hear that. Even having someone in the business, we were white as ghosts when we found out. You're just not expecting it. The statistics, though, are pretty alarming. When I read that 15,000 people in the United States each year have thoracic aortic aneurysms that are affected by it, and then up to 47,000 people die each year from all types of aortic disease. Now listen to this statistic. 11 million Americans are living with heart valve disease, making it, of course, a silent epidemic. This is information that I got from Amy and Pete and their Newsworthy Communications, and I did not realize that it was, those numbers.
Yeah, well, it's like, in the cases, because it is asymptomatic, the numbers are probably, much different. If you have that relative that died of the heart attack and they didn't, check, there's a good possibility that there was something more going on. I know during COVID, when more people were getting screened, getting CT scans, it was
Yeah.
alarming how many people they found had, aortic aneurysms. And what happens is most people get diagnosed when they're looking for something else.
Interesting.
In Pete's case, he had the murmur, so that was an indication that what was going on with the valve, and they found the aneurysm. But people who don't have any, whose valves functioning fine and not making any gurgly noises yet, they could be walking around, and it does. It's a word that I hate to use, but it's true. It's ticking time bomb, or at least it feels like a ticking time bomb in your chest. So once we did that, Pete's a bus driver, and this was in March when he was diagnosed. So the first thing he asks is like, "Well, I'm off for the summer anyways. Can we just put it off until June?"
And the answer was no, correct?
The answer was yes.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yes. So what happened was then we went in and we were going to, talk to the surgeon, and they're like, "Well, you're borderline, Pete, with where you're at." So we waited 6 months.
Oh, smart. Okay.
And then the next 6 months, it was borderline, and we waited another 6 months. And that was, Pete's choice. He can kind of tell you what that, making that decision, you live your life in 6-month chunks on a roller coaster ride between the scans. And finally, after 2 years.
Well, yeah, after 2 years, he just said, "Well, we're ready now. It is time." So,
Oh gosh.
basically, was done living life in 6 month chunks, which, looking back,
Right.
I should have had it fixed right away. But he's like, "Well, I don't think you're going to blow up in the next 6 months. If it was a family member, I'd tell him you can wait or you can do it now." And it's like, well, let's wait because I'm alive doing that way,
Right. I just had a viewer ask, had you ever experienced any pain with it?
Never. No.
Never. Okay. Same as in my family with those who had gone through it. They didn't even know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And really, when you look at that uncertainty in that, so between 2015, 2017, there wasn't a lot of info out there, good info. And all I searched, I spent weeks searching behind the scenes to say, show me somebody who's living their best life after the surgery. Show me somebody, or a celebrity, or whatever. And what happened was Alan Thicke died for an aortic dissection in that interim time.
wow.
Bill Paxton died from complications of the surgery. Arnold Schwarzenegger went in for a TAVR, which is when they go into the groin to replace his valve. He woke up and they said, "Surprise, we had to open you up and do a open heart valve surgery." So I'm like, I just want to see somebody,
Right.
what they do after the surgery. I want some hope, and there was none of that out there.
Interesting. And my father also had to be completely opened up. They could not go through the leg. Yeah. So, and you also had, I understand, conflicting information you were getting. Was that correct? Conflicting.
We did, yeah. My first cardiologist that I had gave us some misinformation on whether this is hereditary, a couple other things. I can't even really remember.
Yeah,
what
he
they
said
were,
that they don't surgery till 5.5, but the next cardiologist says, absolutely, we do it we do the surgery at 5 because there's valve involvement. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My second one, the first one, it was just kind of fate. It's like I couldn't see him for whatever reason, so I saw this other guy, and my family doctor said, "Hey, that's the guy I tried to get you in to see in the first place," and he was busy. So it turned out how it was supposed to, I guess.
It always does. So your actual diagnosis was what?
My diagnosis was I had a bicuspid heart valve that had stenosis, which means it's narrowing over time. So bicuspid heart valve, if you don't know, your heart valve should look like a piece of pizza cut into 3 pieces, and
3 leaflets.
Leaflets, yeah. But if it's like a pizza, 3 pieces of pizza. Mine was like a pizza cut in half, and so it's working. I don't know what the math is, 1/3 or 2/3 or half as hard as it should. So he basically said at around the time of my surgery, my heart was functioning about as much as an 80-year-old guy's heart would function. And I'm like, oh God. And he said, well, your heart's never worked right because you were born that way. So you've never known what it feels like to have a good heart. And I thought, you know, in gym class and we had to run the 600-yard dash, I was never towards the front. I was towards the back, you know, doing
Right.
that. And I thought, oh, well, maybe because I only had partial heart function, you know. But
Well, with
you know,
2 leaflets versus 3, absolutely.
because that's how you've lived, so you don't know what it feels like to have good blood running through you. But
Because you're born that way, correct? With the 2 bicuspid, okay.
yeah, it's a birth defect,
Yeah.
I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, and they say you can, you know, usually, and of course nothing is exact, but when you start getting into your 50s is when you might possibly start seeing things happening.
Interesting.
In the 40s, but you know, some it deteriorates younger, and one of two things happens with that bicuspid valve. It either gets stenotic like Pete's did, where it tightens up, and then it just gets abnormal flow that way, or it gets, I just, you know, using layman's terms, they get flappy and loose.
Okay.
And that's called, you know, kind of regurgitation, where they get looser versus it just tightening up.
And there's no symptoms of being tired or anything?
Not until it's at a point where you need surgery, really, is when you start getting symptomatic. And when you're turning 50, you're just starting to think, I'm getting older. You know, of course I can't do what I used to do because I'm 20 years older.
Right.
And another part of my diagnosis that we rarely even talk about because we just don't think about it is one of my arteries or whatever, you know, when people talk about a quadruple bypass. Well, one of my places you'd bypass was 100% plugged or 98%, whatever. So they were going to fix that at the same time. So they said, we'll just cut the piece out of your leg. And when you were fixing the other thing, we'll go in and do that bypass. Well, I woke up and there was no leg wound. You know, I looked for it. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing it. And they said, no, we got in there and your heart has made its own little rivers all over your heart. And you're getting plenty of blood through there that it's not interrupting anything. Wow. So we're going to leave you alone because your body somehow just kind of took care of it. And
that's amazing.
He had a heart attack at some time and didn't know it. I was told that once too.
Wow.
Who knows?
And right. Wow. So you wake up from surgery. That had to have been I remember watching what my dad went through. That's not an easy surgery and not like a get out of the hospital, go home and you're fine.
No, the surgery, I mean, the worst part for me was waking up with a tube in my mouth. I mean, that really freaked me out. You can't talk or anything. And of course, they told me, no, you won't remember the tube. We get it kind of out as you're waking up. And it's like, well,
you remembered.
I hope I'm the oddball because it's no fun to go through that. And I don't want anybody else to have to. It was kind of panic mode. I mean, it was horrible, to tell you the truth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm waving, you know, and the nurse comes over and I'm like acting here. I'll get so you can see I'm doing this, like it's something to write with here. So she's like, no, you're not going to write me any notes. I'm going to get a doctor and we'll get that thing out of here. She chewed me out.
Yeah, they said that he didn't wake up slowly. He was just up. It was like, so it was.
Wow. My mom was a lot like that from her surgeries, you know, where it takes people time. She literally like would wake up right away and like, let's go home. It's like, no. So I think, you know, bodies recovering or coming out of surgery can be unique to everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's pretty, you know, and when you come from the caregiver side too, and you're watching the person you care about going through this, you know, Pete kind of made the decision that he wasn't going to do much Googling on what he had. He was going to just, you know, trust his doctors. And I was the one that was on my own computer looking up. And again, like I said, I kept finding all these complications and all these things they have to do. And in order to fix the aneurysm, they have to, you know, stop your heart and maybe freeze your brain. So there's all this stuff out there. And it's like, where is the good stuff? There's people that are alive after this. I want something to hold on to, some hope. And it was Pete who, before he went in for the surgery, that, kind of looked at me and he said, Amy, when I get on the other side of the surgery thing, he goes, I want to do something to help other people so that maybe they're not so scared.
So that was the first inclination of, the rock from the heart, even though you weren't quite there, you were still going through this.
Yeah. And even in Pete's case, it was hilarious because he's a drummer, and he goes, Amy, I can find people how long they can golf afterwards, when they can hit a baseball, when they can drive a car. Somebody needs to tell me when I can play my drums. So here's my phone. You need to videotape me playing my drums. I said, okay. So I videotaped him playing his drums for a little bit. And he brought that video and he showed it to everybody, his doctors. He goes, when can I do this again? When can I show
and
the
what
video?
did they say?
They said, we're glad you brought the video, for one thing, because most people think playing drums is like Animal on the Muppet Show where you're doing all this. And that's not usually the case in a real life situation.
Right.
So I want to show them the angle of where's my chest and arms at. And my doctor said, well, I don't know when you can, probably when it doesn't hurt. And it's like, well, I've never done this before, so I don't know when it's not going to hurt.
Right.
I mean, God, it hurts when I cough right now, sometimes years later. But,
right. Exactly. Well, and from our experience, I told Amy offline the other day, my dad at age 70 was playing hockey. And so of course couldn't play when he was having the surgery. And he asked the same thing. The doctor's like, did you say play hockey again? So I took him at lunch because I worked from home and I was their caregiver over to the Chaska Ice Arena and helped him skate. And I even have videos of him building it up, but we had to wait a good 4+ months, before we could get him out there. So, I mean, it might even have been a little longer, but I had him out there not too far after, probably I'd say 6, 7, 8 months. He was back playing, not as fast. I mean, when you're 70 years old, but he enjoyed it.
And a kind of another transformative moment for us was, we're of course music fans. And in that 2 years, how we kept not thinking about it as we'd go on musical adventures, go to Toledo to see Cheap Trick, and go to this, whatever. And then as it turns out, a band that we both really like, we saw that their drummer was going to be gone for 8 weeks for a surgery, for heart surgery. And of course, me with all my vast knowledge, it's like, well, if it's going to be 8 weeks, it's probably going to be open heart. Because if he was getting just about, he would be able to do it much quicker. Well, lo and behold, get close to that 8 weeks, and we see on social media that he's going to be back, partial, maybe singing a song, whatever. And there was a show in Fargo 8 weeks after this person. Was Night Ranger, their drummer, Kelly Kagi. And so we got in the car, we drove to Fargo. And it was, free concert. And
my dog hears your little ball. And she's on my lap, and I did. This is the beauty of live stream, everybody. And mine's on my lap, as most of my viewers know. And I did something, and just about I heard her. And so if you heard her go, she was mad at me. I'm like, oh, sorry, Mimi.
Yeah. Our dog is on the floor with his little animal.
Oh, we love it. That's the best part about this. We can do that. So anyway.
So we saw Night Ranger drummer Kelly drum 2 months after his surgery. So at least we had kind of a barometer there going, well, we saw somebody do it then. So it's
gave you hope.
I did it then too. At 2 months was my first show.
You did. Okay.
Yeah. I think Amy said, in addition to driving buses, I played drums.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Do you want to talk about your musical background? Because that'll kind of also explain, when we get to what is Rock from the Heart, which we're going to get into next. It wasn't just because you had heart surgery; you also are a musician.
I'm a longtime drummer. That's all I did in the 80s and half the 90s. I think I got my first job around then, real job, not musical job.
Everyone got the haircut.
Yeah, got haircuts and had to fill out forms and things like that.
Right.
Anyway, I've.
So you're watching Pete play, and then as a musician, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were watching Kelly play, and it's like, okay, well, if he can do that, I can do that. Then at 2 months, unless something goes drastically wrong, and that's not going to happen. I didn't, that was
Right.
my positive thinking. Anyway, we Rock from the Heart was gonna. We kind of thought, well, we'll get my band. I play in a David Bowie tribute band. We'll get my band to maybe do a show, and we'll raise money for heart stuff or something. And then we started thinking, well, let's go a little bit bigger maybe, and let's ask Night Ranger and have him talk about heart stuff, and maybe we can play the heart card and they'll come and play our show. Well, that kind of came true. We talked about our hearts and stuff, and they were real interested, and they came and they played the first Rock from the Heart, and my David Bowie band still played it. We opened the show, so I've opened every Rock from the Heart show with
And what is the name of your David Bowie tribute band?
The Band That Fell to Earth.
I love it. Okay.
But anyway, for Rock from the Hearts, I kind of formed a special band of just a whole bunch of different people. Some of them are survivors, some of them aren't. And we call that Aortic Fire. So Aortic Fire is kind of a heart. It's just kind of a fun, goofy name, really. But it's easy to remember, and it has a heart
Love
theme.
it.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, Gina, the drummer from the Go-Go's, came and played some Go-Go songs with us last May in Aortic Fire, opening for Rick Springfield for Rock from the Heart. That was a real cool thing.
That is amazing. And I know that this will be your 6th year, correct? Running Rock from the Heart?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many, I know we have an event coming up in St. Paul here in February, which I want to get into as well. But how many events do you typically do throughout a year? Because you do more, right? A few around the area, or is it just the one every year?
We do 2.
Okay.
We do the one, we tie the one, we keep it in February.
Yep.
Here, those who are not in Minnesota, the world doesn't stop in the winter in Minnesota. We power through. And it aligns with Heart Valve Disease Awareness Day, which is February 22nd. So we do that one as close to that as possible. And then we expanded to Fargo a couple years ago. And we made the mistake the first year of doing it in February. It was good. The guys from Night Ranger, they were our headliner for that show. They were troopers. It was 20 below. The wind was howling. But we did it. But Brad Gillis, the guitar player, looked at me and he goes, "Amy, no more Februarys, please." And it made it easier for us too. So now we do that one in May, the first weekend in May. We do one in the Fargo Moorhead area as well. So this will be our 3rd year doing the May one. This will be our
3rd Fargo one.
It'll be the fourth Fargo, the 3rd one in May. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So you give yourself a few months apart. And for those that are tuning in, Rock from the Heart, I shared what their mission is. And also, of course, they're talking about the band piece, but the actual event that'll happen on February 21st at the St. Paul Hotel, talk a little bit about what that entails for that fundraiser.
Well, that's part 1 of Rock from the Heart. Part 1 is Friday. That's education. Part 2, Saturday, rock concert to celebrate life and good hearts and all that. So we call it Aortic Ed. And we have a little character, Aortic Ed, that we made. He's like a little heart-shaped man, or guy, girl. We don't know what he is, but he's Ed. Anyway, we have Aortic Ed on Friday, and that's. I'm tired and silly.
You know what? And you fit in with me.
Symposium, so we changed it to Aortic Ed, and invented this funny little man called Ed. In the shape of a heart. So education. It's more fun than a symposium. It's education, Ed.
You have to have humor in everything we do in life, especially given what you went through. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we do that from about 1 till 6 on that Friday. This year it's at the St. Paul Hotel. Last year it was too. We get doctors and surgeons, mental health professionals, maybe a dietitian, maybe a cardiac rehab person. I mean, we change it up every year, and we get all these cool people to come in and talk for, 20 minutes each or something. And they bring their slideshows and their pointer, and we learn all sorts of neat stuff.
Right.
Drink coffee and eat things that are bad for your heart. No, good for your heart.
Well,
Yeah,
the St. Paul,
Awesome.
the St. Paul Hotel is such a wonderful place. And one thing that I didn't realize till our family personally went through this, and you do mention it often in a lot of the media where you've been interviewed in different parts of the Midwest, was the subject of the emotional recovery from open heart surgery and how that's overlooked. And it truly is. Nobody tells you what's going to happen after. And I realize everybody's journey is a little different, but I love that you touch on that and that you bring the mental health piece into not only this, what do you call it? Aortic ed
Yeah.
event. And just so that patients can prepare both beforehand and afterwards.
Yeah. I always say that, we live in Minnesota where we got some of the best in the world here, and we're fortunate. And it's easy to fall into this thinking that it's like this all around the country, because it's just not. There's not every hospital is like the Minneapolis Heart Institute or Mayo is. But Pete was told in the hospital before discharge to watch for cardiac depression because it's very real. And they had, even in his discharge papers, information about that. Our insurance company actually called after he was home to see if he had signed up for cardiac rehab yet. You'll see across the board when people go for cardiac rehab, and a lot of people think it's just walking on a treadmill and they start later. But Pete got into his, what at about, you weren't even driving yet, so it was before a month.
No, I was like 6 days after I got home from the hospital was my first day of cardiac rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge deal, covered by the insurance. The insurance even made sure that he was going for the mental health thing. So while you'll see a lot of people talking about it being just walking on a treadmill, there's so much more. It's being there in the room going, you've got this person who's maybe a little bit farther along post-surgery than you are, and you're seeing that progression. You're seeing the person, you get a few weeks into it and you see the person that's just coming in, that maybe you can help and encourage them. And then even just heart education that I could go to with him. But I remember the day Pete was told he could drive in 4 weeks. And in 3 weeks and 6 days, he's like, I can't wait another day. I'm driving. But today, that was a big deal. That was a big deal, just driving the car again.
You realize how much independence it takes, it's taken away from you. And as a daughter and as the wife, what I want my viewers to know too is that when you're on that journey, and in Amy's case, she's part of who founded this organization, but it's not just because Pete had the surgery and he's in the band and that's how this what a lot of people, and I did my homework, Amy, you have an events background. And that clicked for me when I'm like, wow, this is amazing what they were doing. This is so good. I mean, not everybody's born with that skill set. And clearly you have that background, which makes total sense on why this is such an incredible and such a successful event.
Yeah, well, kudos to the Delano Chamber of Commerce, where I dipped my feet in. And also I did some work with the Colon Cancer Coalition. A friend of mine founded that organization. And just an ability to know what you know what you don't know, and surround yourself with people who can fill in those gaps. When it came to booking, Night Ranger, I'd never booked a national act, but I knew somebody who was involved in some larger events. And I'm like, what do we do? He goes, well, don't ever go through like a third party talent buyer. Just go find who the agent is. So I dug into my other career where I do phone stuff, and I knew that I had a customer who was a management kind of a guy, and I got him a headset one time. So I called him and said, how do I find out who Night Ranger's agent is? Anyway, I got an email. And so I sent an email, and then I got the email back, and within a few months we had him booked. And I'm like pinching myself. It's like, okay, now what?
Right. Be careful for what you wish for. You did it.
Researching theaters and venues and costs and pulling the pieces together. And it's just about being able to kind of see the end, see the finish line, and then just pulling back from that and putting all those pieces together. Because it really is important for us to have this event be an experience for everybody. We don't want it to be tied up with logistical issues. I mean, there's always little snafus here and there, but it really is about an experience. And people who've come to Rock from the Heart events, the whole 2-day event, say that it's hard to explain until you've attended, because it's more than just, a patient education thing, sitting in a room and hearing doctors. It's more than just a concert. It's
Mhm.
everything combined together. And I think the best part of after the first Rock from the Heart and everyone since then is watching the new friendships that you'll notice on social media. All of a sudden, this one person you knew who came from Chicago is talking to your people that came from Maryland, and they've become friends because they spent this moment together in a room with people who they can say, I can look across this room and know I'm not alone. I'm not people here who have been through what I've been through and who truly understand what that was like.
Well, and I love how you bring the education piece, the music piece with sense of humor. You don't call it a symposium for that reason. You make it fun, and it allows for people then to engage and bond, and on all levels, the family members, the person who's been through it. It's all a different emotional piece, and especially when there's complications. I many of my viewers know this that have followed me for 20 plus years. We got the call to go back that my dad wasn't going to make it at the hospital after we had gone home. And when we went back that night, he did a miracle. But I watched my mom and they had such a love story. And I know I've told Amy this offline. And when you watch this happen, and then he was on life support for like 10 days, but then, came back to us after they get out and they're back on ice skates and they're going through that journey it's hard to explain. Every day I would just look at my dad and want to live life to the fullest with him and make sure he was able to travel and do all the things he wanted to do. And we laughed, and people don't realize in the back of your mind, you're thinking, gosh, he might not have been here. Just those emotion pieces too. So that's what I love about what you're doing and bringing everybody together, the patient, the family, and the fun and the music.
And that's what, when I talked about kind of going back and living your life in 6-month chunks, until we saw Kelly Kagi on stage playing his drums 8 weeks after his surgery, I'd been planning my life in 6-month chunks. I knew that the next scan was going to be in June. It was real hard for me to think about doing anything in July.
Mm-hmm.
But once that day happened, Pete booked a gig to play 8 weeks after his surgery after that.
Of course he did. That's great. And were you feeling, pretty like, were you feeling 100% at that gig, or were you still recovering, but you're able to play?
No, I mean, I was still on lifting restrictions. So I just, I think Amy carried most of my gear to the show, but yeah, I could drum. I was feeling good. I mean, I'd been practicing for 2 weeks before that. I got the go ahead from the cardiologist to go ahead and do it. If it hurts, stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got some, great pictures the day the band came over to practice for the gig. That was really a special moment.
I bet emotional too. Yeah. Wow. With your story and with this organization and everything, I know we've jumped around just a little bit. What else have we not shared with the viewers that you think they need to know?
I kind of wanted just to touch a little more on the cardiac rehab, how important I think that is.
Yes.
Really, because of the mental part. I mean, for me, just a nutshell of my cardiac rehab, I couldn't walk down the hallway from the front door to the rehab room. And I'm like, what am I doing here? I can't even walk down there. And it really, that bummed me out. I mean, I was fine sitting home watching Gilligan healing up, but not being able to walk down this hallway, that I thought, okay, is this what being depressed feels like? Maybe it is. Anyway, we finally got down there. They found out that I had some fluid in my left lung, and that's why I couldn't walk, because I'd run out of breath after 3 steps. So they got that taken care of with some pills. So then, okay, I'm ready for cardiac rehab. But anyway, the whole mental thing of just getting out of the house, for one thing, being around other people. Amy said earlier, some are better than me, some are worse than me. You kind of fall in the middle, and you you appreciate what you have and you envy what you see over there and you feel bad for what you see over there. You're feeling human again, a little pushing and pull. And that's
Mm.
the kind of stuff to bring you out of, self-loathing with Gilligan. The Brady Bunch. I mean, I think I ran through the Brady Bunch 2 times.
Oh, all the reruns.
Oh God, yeah. Love that show.
I did. That's our generation. Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
Picture of Barry Williams about 10 feet away from us. He wrote out to him, which is pretty cool.
Oh, very cool.
Greg Brady. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You were in rehab for 6 weeks, was it? Cardiac rehab?
I think it was longer than that. I think it was 10.
Three,
Oh,
three
wow.
times a week.
3 times a week.
24 sessions.
Okay.
What
It's a long time.
Yeah. 3 months. 3 times.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
But it was good, and it was that progression. And he's got the one great picture the day that he sent me where he was doing the Jetson thing on the treadmill. Veins off this crazy thing.
Ah.
Again, of course, talking about the Jetsons, but milestones along the way. And like I said before, when you talk about this, the recovery and the mental aspect of it, if you think that cardiac rehab is just walking on a treadmill, getting that physical self back together, it's really so much more. It's
Yes.
so much more.
The emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and then financial, being out of work. And I mean, for some people, they don't have that where they could do it in the summer or their summer off. And that's it can be a long journey.
It is.
Yeah. And that was kind of our thinking with Pete already being, off work. He would drum for some gigs in the summer, but it would be less of a financial hit because we knew, and we'd somehow plan. We knew that the summer the income would change because being a bus driver. So that was why we did it. And ended up missing because you didn't go back till October because your surgery ended up in July. So he did miss a month.
Yeah. When you drive school bus, you can't drive for 90 days after you've had something like that. So
Oh, wow.
you're forced into a 3-month break, no matter how you slice it, no matter how good you feel.
Well, and so you got to watch more of Gilligan and Brady Bunch.
More Gilligan, yeah.
That's a funny side note. After he was diagnosed, I think that's when we watched every Elvis movie from start to finish.
Yeah, we did. Just to take our minds off of what was going on.
What a talent he was. Oh, wow. So after you've got through cardiac rehab, and I know we've talked about this Rock from the Heart's been in you founded it 6 years ago, right? So we're starting our 6th year, or has it been 7 years?
Yep. Well, our first event, we kind of founded in 2018. The wheels were spinning and the planning happened. And the first event was in February of 2019.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep. So this will be the 6th year. That's fantastic. And I know that it's growing and it's making such an impact on so many people and such a great opportunity for those that are going through this or maybe just found out they may have to eventually. What a great way to prepare the whole family. I mean, with the statistics that you gave that I talked about before, I mean, 11 million Americans are living with heart valve disease. That's a lot. That's a lot. So this is something that will affect, isn't it also the number one heart disease, one of the number one killers in certain age groups over cancer?
In certain
I
age
believe
groups.
it is.
Yeah, I believe it is too. I don't want to say the wrong statistic, but with that, what else have we not touched on that we were hoping to cover in this show?
Kind of the unique thing about Rock from the Heart with what we're doing is because we're so patient focused, but yet we just bring in, whatever the band we get for that year. And what we found over the years is people who thought they were alone in their disease or they were recently diagnosed, they'll say, oh, Rick Springfield is coming or Night Ranger's coming or Grand Funk Railroad. And then they'll go to our website and they'll go, aorta? And they'll say, these are my people. We had one gentleman that came from Chicago to us, and he's attended 2 Rock from the Hearts. Now he ended up having an aortic dissection during COVID. His mom died during that time, and he was alone and thought he was alone. And One of the last events he came to and brought his sister with, his sister told me, until he found Rock from the Heart, he was alone. He goes, "You're his people." He found his people. He found a new family, and that's what it really feels like as a family. So we use the music to kind of reach maybe the non-traditional audience. When you start talking about health, you're usually a lot of times you're preaching to the choir. Your message is getting out to the same people who follow these organizations.
Mhm.
By doing a concert, we have more people that'll find the concert and then come for the education piece too, because they saw who the band was. So it really kind of ties it all together, uses something unique and fun to reach an audience that maybe wouldn't have got the message of the other traditional channels.
Yes, I love that, and it's interesting in just thinking about um, all of the different pieces. I mean, for me, it's been a while for my own personal journey with my dad, but I just am so impressed with, like I said, the education piece, the bringing people together, like someone like the gentleman you just spoke about. I can't even imagine the feeling of being alone during COVID. They really were alone,
Yeah.
and they had the nurse, and unless they're in dire straits, they probably wouldn't even let the family in, and you have to drop them off, and they have the surgery, and then you pick them up, and
Right.
that has to be scarring and traumatic.
And the beautiful is he had to have some subsequent surgeries not that long ago, and he wasn't alone this time. He
Oh,
had this
good.
whole support network that was rooting for him, before, during, and after. And he also knew many people who'd been through surgeries after the initial surgery who were doing great. So it gives that community, that sense of community, and that sense of hope.
Yes, hope.
Yep.
For
And he
sure.
got Sebastian Bach, the former lead singer of Skid Row, as the first of our headliners to say aortic dissection on stage. He said it's one of the great rock band, aortic dissection. But it
Oh.
also, the artists that come in, they learn about it too. And
Mhm.
because when we target this classic rock age, when we talked earlier about if you're born with a bicuspid valve or heart disease, the 50s is maybe that, age where in many cases it's the symptoms, or it starts to be at a point where you might need to look at it further and start talking about treatments for it.
Mhm.
That's that market in this
Right.
that come to these shows.
Well,
Now,
and for those that are just tuning in, we've had viewers coming in and out. I have the founders of Rock from the Heart, Pete and Amy Johnson, with me, and they have been not only sharing their story, but also their why and what Rock for the Heart from the Heart is. And for those who maybe have had family members go through it, or you might go through it and not even know, what I love is it's a nonprofit organization that educates people about aortic and heart disease. But in addition to that, not only just those suffering with it, but it supports their families as well, and with resources and information, so that everybody feels like they're not alone. And also, what a great event! It'll be at the St. Paul Hotel, February 21st and 2nd. Is it? Or
That's correct.
yep. So
okay,
the aortic ed is at the St. Paul Hotel on
okay,
Friday, February 21st.
okay.
On Saturday, the one thing we're adding this year that we're still getting the details together is a community heart screening.
Oh, wow.
That we're pulling together the pieces for that. So, from about we're figuring about 10 till 1 or 10 to 2, people can
Mhm.
come in and get a stethoscopes check and hear for a murmur, so that we can listen for that. And we'll have a medical team there to be able to get them, next steps and referrals to them if anything is found. And then the concert is Saturday night at the Palace Theater, which we were there
Oh,
last year. It's really a great room. Before the concert, we do have the Rockin' Hearts pre-show party. There's only about 100 tickets for that. And
okay.
that's just a chance to get together, beforehand. We've got some, I call them our local regional celebrities coming. We've got Miss Minnesota.
Oh,
Emily Schumacher is our MC for the symposium, and she'll be our guest on Saturday as well.
that program funded my college and television career
And we
30,
talked
30 plus
about
years
the
ago.
concert. We've mentioned the concert a whole bunch,
Yeah.
but not once I don't think have we said the Spin Doctors are headlining.
Yes.
They
Rock.
are fantastic. Okay.
Yes.
And my band, Aortic Fire, will open for the Spin Doctors with our new friend Gina Shock from the Go-Go's coming back again to play a few Go-Go songs with us during our set.
Yeah.
We'll double drum, me and Gina.
And
Fantastic.
A lot of fun to double drum with someone from the Go-Go's. None of my friends have got to do it, so I feel special.
We
And Gina's a
learned
heart surgery survivor too. She had heart surgery in 1983.
84.
84.
That's why we called her.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought,
why we called
Gina had a heart surgery. Let's see what she's doing. And she thought it'd be fun to come and play drums. So she did.
It was actually, she was on my list of people to try to, get a hold of. It's like, how do you get a hold of her? As it turns out, last year I messaged her through Facebook, and 2 weeks after I sent that message, I got a message back with a phone number to call. And so when you talk about, dreaming big, you never know. The worst you could hear is no or nothing, right?
I am so impressed. You're absolutely right. But not only did you dream big, you made it happen, and you're continuing to make it happen. And I mean, the Spin Doctors.
Spin Doctors.
And I mean, what a great event. And this is coming up for those just tuning in on February 21st and 22nd. I have all the information above this video, and then I'll go back in and tag Rock from the Heart so you can see the event on their Facebook page and all the information, the link to buy tickets, and a little bit of the schedule. It sounds like there's more of a schedule since even I've been there for the second day specifically. And but all the links are there and all the information. And for more information, of course, reach out through Messenger or comment, and I'll make sure you get connected directly to Amy and Pete to ask any questions and to learn more. But what a great tool and resource for all families going through this, and have fun with great bands and music.
Yeah, we want to fill the room for both days. We've got just a spectacular lineup of speakers that is posted from various medical organizations across the metro here, and even some people flying in from out of state. We've got the people from the Alliance for Aging Research will be here. They started Heart Valve Disease Awareness Day. They're flying a team in. We've got Heart Valve Voice, which is another patient advocacy organization. They're sending a team here.
And we got the guy from WebMD too.
WebMD, yep, John White from WebMD. Dr. Google is coming.
And most doctors will say, don't, to people like yourself who was Googling, don't Google. they encourage that. But I did the same thing. Yeah.
But so that's going to be, just fantastic, because if you want to, meet people and really be in an environment, we just, we feel this is our year. We started off strong. We had to rebuild a little bit after COVID, as we all did. Bring that back. And like I said, even in Minnesota, we've got people, when we did the North Dakota one, 13 states came to Fargo to Rock from the Heart.
Wow.
Our first year there. And that was 2000, that would have been 2020.
It was.
Yeah.
20.
Oh, wow. Okay. It was 2021 right after the next year following COVID. Yeah. Well, it was still kind of in it. Yeah.
2019, 2020, 2021 was COVID. So 2022 February would have been.
Wow.
Came back.
And here you are, but 2 years later, 3 years. That's fantastic, and congrats. Is there anything else that we haven't covered before we close out?
One thing I'd like to say about coming to a Rock from the Heart event, or even supporting us, is if you don't know somebody in your life today who's been affected by aortic or heart valve disease, you will.
I was just going to say you will. Definitely will.
And we have found that some of our friends that are not, survivors or caregivers themselves, every one of them has run into somebody since, a neighbor, a family member, a coworker who's been affected. And then when they hear it, either we get an email and they say, hey, such so-and-so, the mayor of the neighboring town, isn't this what you guys do? Yes, that's what we do. And they have the information, because the ones that have attended the sessions can say, you're going to be okay. Here's some resources. Here's some organizations you can check into. Here's some people who are survivors if you want to connect. And we've been able to help people. Pete's made many personal phone calls to people who were scared.
You bet.
Yeah. Always wanted to pick up that phone and talk talk to people who have questions. We're not the medical professionals though. We won't answer the medical questions, but we can point you in the right direction.
You can help them get to the right resources, but your program and your organization gives people the tools and the foundation to be connected to people who will have the answers.
Yeah.
And that's what's so impressive, in addition to the education piece and the band and, like I said, the entertainment and bringing the sense of humor into it as well.
All of it's designed to all come together and give people some hope. That's plain and simple what it is.
Thank you.
We want to walk away with a little hope, and then we did our job.
Yes.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. You have, and you continue to do so. And I'm certainly impressed, having been through it with not personally, but with a family member. Anything else?
No, that's it.
That's it. Well, we've had almost an hour-long show. It's better than that's, with what you've gone through in your story, it's hard to tell. I know you've done a lot of media in a 3, 5 minute, even 10 minutes. There is so much to it. So I appreciate you taking time before the holidays to sit down with me, all of us, myself and our viewers, to share your story, to share hope, and to share your organization and how people can give back and attend, and all the links and information are above. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. And of course, we want you there in February, 21st and 22nd. But if you can't make that, May 2nd and 3rd in Fargo. And Sebastian Bach will be headlining for us. He'll be our third time with Sebastian in Fargo, May 2nd and 3rd.
So if you can't make the February 21st and 22nd here in Minnesota and St. Paul, you definitely Fargo in May is a great option.
Yep. Tickets are on sale for both shows, and registration open for both aortic ed sessions now on our website.
Yes, and to get to I'll have the website. It's actually above this video, but I also have their Facebook, which has the events and some of the information there. But I did put it in above this link as well, and I'll go back and make sure it's connected to everything. So great. Anything else before we say goodbye? It's the long Minnesota Lutheran goodbye, right?
Yeah, it's like you got to say it at least.
Bye,
what is it?
everybody.
At least 4 times. But yeah, we appreciate the opportunity so much to share our story and connect with the community. So thank you, Carla, for having us on tonight.
Oh, it's my true honor. I'm so thankful to Newsworthy Communications for introducing us, and I'm just congratulations, and I'm wishing you just the continued success. And for the viewers that are tuning in, thank you for watching. We've had 3 shows this week, and we have another one coming up next Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So thank you for all of those who have been watching, who tuned in, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And thank you again to both of you. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Carla. Bye.